Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I got my little hula tropical type shirt on, going on. So I'm ready for the beach. It's kind of cool over here. You know, it's not really ready for beach time. But, you know, when I get to the Philippines, I think I'm going to go swimming. Anyways, man. So I went ahead and grabbed another one of the games between Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley of their tie breaks. So this is their fourth total game that they played. And it's the second of the tie breaks. You know, a little faster format, 10 minutes type situation. All of my people that are in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking makaibigan. Let me see. It is, man, it's crazy. It's like in the middle of the night over there. So maganak umaga almusal tayo. If you're getting up at, it's like 2:30 in the morning. So, I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to watch this real soon. You know, so in a couple hours. But anyways, if you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look, see what we got for this game. All right, so we got the move E4. We got G6, D4. Back this up a touch. We got the move, bishop to G7. We got knight to C3, D6, and then the super explosive, crazy H4. Hikaru's like, bro, like, I'm going to hook you, and I'm going to just murder this whole side right here. Look at all this. Look at all this. Exactly. This is actually a very common thing that you do, you know, when you are playing against a Fee and Kettle position, is just to try to, like, kind of push a little H4, H5, hook the situation up, and kind of start to open some lines. But this is known as the modern or the Pirc. You know, a lot of people know it as Pirc. You know, even though it's, you know, Yugoslavian, you know, grandmasters that they named it after. Anyways, we got knight to F6. We got F3. We got knight to C6. We got bishop to E3. The move E5. And we actually see the move knight G to E2 in the game. Now, something that you guys probably are kind of aware of is the setup of these kingside pawns for Naka. You know, this is definitely, if you were to go, let's say D5 and then knight goes back to E7, you can actually kind of start the attack with G4 in this situation. You know, this is kind of similar to like the Yugoslav with, you know, like the Sicilian dragon. You know, this is just a very common type of thing. And then, you know, H5 is going to come at some point. And I mean, you're really making it undesirable to castle on that side. But we don't see that. Like I said, we do see knight G to E2. We got castles by black. And then the novelty of the game, which is pawn takes E5. Just kind of opening up things in the center of the board and getting down to some trades. So pawn takes E5, queen takes D8, rook takes D8. We got the move A3. Because you really can't castle at the moment, you really don't want any knight to B4s coming in. I mean, because you're going to be sad after this fork. So we do see the move A3 preventing all of that. Bishop comes up to E6. We got knight over to G3. We got the move H5. Now, basically, the stuff that Hikaru was kind of setting up at the beginning of the game is kind of null and void now. This pawn is not going anywhere, and this knight is actually kind of weirdly placed on G3. So this is something that the commentators were talking about pretty heavily. And I mean, it just, if you're on the white side, this does look kind of weird because, I mean, where is this knight going? Like, what is this knight doing? It's not protecting anything. It's not attacking anything. So, I mean, it can become a liability at some point. So we do see bishop to G5. And basically, because H5 was played, this bishop could literally live on G5 forever. And I mean, it's not a horrible thing. I mean, you do have a heavy piece behind this knight. So, I mean, you know, kind of, you know, pin that piece down. Sometimes, you know, you have a queen over here. So, I mean, bishop to G5 is a legitimate move. So we do see the move A6. We got bishop to D3. Rook goes down to D6, and we do have a long castle. So, I mean, you know, basically, both sides are pretty much done what they need to do. You know, black has a slight advantage. I mean, you know, it's mostly because this knight, like I said, is really weirdly placed. You kind of have to do something with this knight. Maybe go down to F1 and kind of redirect to E3 to kind of get it on like a more active square type situation, you know, so that you can kind of improve your situation a little bit. But we do see the move knight to D7. And then in the game, we actually see bishop back to F1, encouraging the trade of rooks. But we actually, in this position, it wasn't like it was completely won, but we actually did, as white, have the move knight to D5. Now, if you do a little bit of calculation going into the future, you know, if bishop was to take here on D5, you would be taking back here, and then the rook would possibly be taken, and then bishop capturing on G6. You are taking advantage. It might look kind of strange because you're like, wait a minute, like rook takes with check, right? Well, the thing about it is this knight is undefended behind this rook. So if the rook does take with check, we do take back with rook takes D1. You know, we have just gotten a nice little pawn situation. You know, we are going to be getting this knight back. So But like I said, we did see bishop to f1. And we got knight down to d4. And I mean, the commentators were really screaming for this move to be played because it's like the most perfect, like, like move ever. It really takes advantage of the fact that there isn't a knight on e2 or f3, preventing, not super preventing the move, but just making it a lot more undesirable for this move to get played. So we do see knight c to e2. We got the move c5. And I mean, this is a pretty strong knight. So if we compare the situation between black and white, black is by far in a much more superior position. You kind of have all of these pieces, for white kind of bunched up, and they're not really kind of fulfilling their full potential. So, I mean, black definitely has, they got a strong knight in the center. They got nice bishops going on. This knight is going to get redirected somewhere. This rook is going to come into the game. Well, of course not now because this bishop is right here. But, I mean, you can see that black has a lot more kind of going for them in this situation. We do see king over to b1. Never a bad move. We got f6. Now we are, cutting off this bishop from, defending that d8 square. So the bishop does come down to e3. We got knight to b6. We got the move c3 attacking this knight. So it kind of seems like, okay, now this knight is going to get dislodged. You kind of have a little bit of an issue, you think, because, I mean, this rook is undefended behind this knight. So, I mean, if you move this knight somewhere, you're going to be dropping the rook, right? Well, we have actually reached a position where Wesley So has a really, really crazy strong move that he can play. If you want to pause the video and guess and see what move that is, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So what we actually see in the game, which is also a really nice move, is actually bishop to b3. And it is just counterattacking this rook because it is undefended on d1 itself. But the move that I'm actually looking for is knight to c4. And what you are doing is what I always tell you guys. Whenever you look in your opponent's position and see an undefended piece, like there should be like some tactics and some moves that should kind of scream out to you. This is definitely just saying, hey, man, I'll take your bishop if you take my knight, right? So the bishop would probably have to take on d4. Pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4. But this is actually the really killer move, rook to b6. And like, how are you defending this check? You're going to have to sidestep, but I mean, your whole queen side pawns are going to be falling apart. This rook is going to swing over. These pawns are going to take. I mean, you can push this pawn. These bishops become really, really active. I mean, this is absolutely not where you want to be if you are white. But like I said, we did see bishop to b3, so it kind of asks white, what does it want to do with his rook? So the rook, it does slide over to c1. We got knight up to e6. So, I mean, because of the nice Zug move that Wesley So placed, he was able to kind of weasel out what looked like a pretty dire situation. So the knight does come to e6. We see rook over to e1. But like I said, I reiterate, you see that all of these pieces over here, I mean, are really, really bunched up. They're not really doing what you would prefer for them to be doing in the position. Like I said, this knight is really horrible on g3. And I mean, the pieces are kind of bunched up and blocked off, and not defending each other. So they're not coordinated like you want them to be. And Wesley So is definitely taking advantage of this. So we do see the knight going to c4, not really giving, Hikaru a chance to really kind of unravel his pieces. We do see the knight coming down to c1, knight taking e3, knight taking b3. And then we have the really nice bishop to h6. And bishop to h6 is basically just saying, my knight is like all in your kitchen, homie. I mean, I'm going to be swinging my rook over here. So, I mean, yeah, it's just not looking great. So the rook does slide to g1. We got c4, displacing this knight. So you see that, like, Hikaru's pieces never quite find where they want to go. And this is absolutely, by far, the last move that you ever want to make with a knight. Knight to a1. You got two moves you can make from there. No, this is a super, super grim knight. We do see a rook a to d8, like I said, getting complete control over that file. We got bishop up to e2, rook down to d2. And Wesley So is prepared to sacrifice the exchange to gain a piece. The knight goes down to f1, rook takes e2, rook takes e2, rook goes down to d1 with check. King goes up to a2. We got rook taking f1, rook taking f1, knight taking f1. So white does have their rook, but they are down quite a bit because they do have that piece that they did lose. So it's not looking extra great. So this is kind of like an immortal type of sacrifice situation. So we do see knight over to c2. Like, if there is a time for you to start kind of getting your pieces unraveled, it is right now. So we do see a knight over to c5. A rook goes down to e1, attacking this knight. the knight goes up to D2. Now, basically, like I said, you are down the exchange, but you do have an extra piece. So black is going to be looking to coordinate its pieces like all over the entire board and make sure everything's protecting everything, and basically make this rook not be as powerful as you really would like. So we do see the move A4, and I'll have to be honest, this move is actually really strange to me. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be doing. Like, if we back up here, I mean, you're going to be moving knight to B4, right? Like, that's the most logical move for you to be making, right? So, like, why not make it now? I mean, if you're going to do something, knight to B4 and then knight to D5, and then, I mean, you got maybe some threats. And, I mean, you weren't going to go knight to A3. I don't know. So, I mean, it just pretty much just gives the pawn away, like, completely. And you go knight to B4. Like I said, you could have just kind of went knight to B4 already. So, I don't know. But we do see king down to F7. Why not bring the king in the game? We got knight to D5. Knight goes back to C5. We got rook over to D1. And this is kind of trying to be kind of sneaky a little bit, but there really isn't a good way to block this bishop. We do see the move B5. We got king up to A3. Bishop goes back to F8 and basically tells Hikaru, hey, rethink your move with your king. So he says, okay, I'll shimmy back. King to A2. We got knight D to B3. We got the move F4. Pawn takes F4. Knight takes F4. So, I mean, you know, it might kind of seem like white is starting to kind of, you know, open some lines, do something, but it's just a little bit too late. The bishop does come back down to H6. We got knight to D5. Knight takes E4. Knight goes up to C7. We got knight E back to C5. We got rook up to D8. Knight goes down to C1 with check. The king goes to B1. Knight 1 goes to D3. We got knight down to D5. And then a very, very forcing move, knight to F4. And the problem is you are threatening these pawns. And after you take this pawn, you're threatening this pawn. So it's like you really kind of have to trade. But Hikaru knows that trading is just going to help Wesley So, so he really kind of can't do it, even though it's like one of the top moves. The knight goes back down to B4, and then we just snap a pawn on G2. We got rook over to C8. Bishop goes back to F8. We were, you know, getting our knight attacked on C5, so bishop goes back to F8. Rook to C7 with check. The king goes down to E6. Rook to C6 with check. The king goes to E5. The king has no worries. I mean, you literally can just move yourself out of all these checks, and you're good to go. So the rook does go back to C8, and then like super calmly, I was watching the game. Wesley So just like super calmly moves his bishop down there like, whatever, bro. Like, it's funny. The bishop goes to D6. We got the rook over to D8. And then we have gotten the last pawn off of the board on the king side. And you see that these pieces, these pawns over here, I mean, there's really nothing preventing them from scoring touchdowns consecutively. So we do see knight to C6 with check. And actually, hold on. There's one more move. King goes to E6, but I guess it didn't register it. But it is in this position that Hikaru Nakamura does resign the game, and he makes a beeline out of there. But anyways, so I mean, this is Wesley So getting his revenge for that first game that they played. But it's like, man, he almost. I was watching the video. He almost took that pawn on F7 with that rook, like the line that I was showing you guys. But he barely had. He had like 1 second left, 2 seconds left. So I mean, can't blame him, man. But anyway, this is a nice comeback victory for Wesley So. So I appreciate you guys very much. Maraming salamat. Akikba kaibigan. Po sana nunu inga king my video. I appreciate you guys very much. Makito tayo mamaya, and I'm gonna see everybody next time.